Good morning and welcome to A View from the Top, brought to you by the Rush Sports Medicine Team. I'm your host, Christopher Haralson, and every Wednesday morning here on Super Talk Meridian 103.3 FM, we take a look around the world of Meridian Community College athletics. Last night, the men's basketball team improved to 11-4 overall and 3-3 MAC play as they went over to Decatur, picked up the 60-42 win over the Warriors. Last Thursday, they also picked up a win at home versus Oklahoma, 68-56. Tomorrow night, the Eagles will be back home in the Graham Gymnasium as they take on the Bulldogs from Hines Community College. That's a 6 o'clock tip in the Graham. If you can't make it out, you can always watch our home games at mcceagles.live. The Lady Eagles, not so good in the last week. Two tough losses. They went to Clarksdale and fell to the Lady Tigers of Oklahoma 49-42 last Thursday. And then last night went into overtime with the Lady Warriors of East Central and fell 73-66. That drops them to 5-8 overall and 2-4 in conference play. Tomorrow night they'll make the trip over to Utica as they'll play the Lady Bulldogs of Hines. That's a 6 o'clock tip as well. MCC track team started their season last week as they went up to Birmingham and ran in the UAB Vulcan Invitational. They'll be back in Birmingham again this weekend for the Sanford Invitational. MCC softball will head down to Pensacola State College for a tournament when they open their season Friday and Saturday, February 4th and 5th. They'll play several schools, including Bryant and Stratton College, Coastal Alabama South, as well as the host school, Pensacola State. And while the Lady Eagles are down there, the MCC baseball will host Pensacola State as they open up their season Saturday, February 5th. That's a doubleheader at Skaggs Field starting at 2 o'clock. MCC baseball preseason ranked number 14 in the country. Coach Dylan Sudduth looks for a really good team there. MCC tennis also opens up that same weekend as they'll open up their schedule Sunday, February 6th against Oxford Emory University. And then the number 7th ranked golf team will head down to Bishop State on Monday, February 7th, as they'll start their portion of the spring schedule. So a lot of things happening at MCC. Spring season is almost underway, and we'll have a lot going on and more coming up in the weeks to follow. MCC Soccer is going to host a youth soccer camp February 8th through 10th at C.D. Smith Field. That'll be from 5:30 to 7:30, $75 per camper. And the kids, this will be a good time for them to get some instruction from current MCC Eagles as well as our coaching staff to get geared up for their club season or rec season. For registration or more information about that camp, you can contact head coach Mike Smith at msmith3@meridiancc.edu. After the break, I'll be joined by MCC head track coach Chip Gayden. We'll take a short break. You're listening to A View from the Top, brought to you by the Rush Sports Medicine Team here on Super Talk Meridian 103.3 FM. Welcome back to A View from the Top, brought to you by the Rush Sports Medicine Team. I'm your host, Christopher Haralson, and this morning I'm joined by head MCC track coach Chip Gayden. Good morning, Coach. How are you?
Good morning. Appreciate you having me.
Yes, sir. Glad to have you. And when I sat down and we started, kind of prepping for the show and trying to figure out what we wanted to talk about, it didn't occur to me that you've been here almost 9 years. I feel like it was just the other day we didn't have track, and now we do, and we're going on our 8th season here. Does it feel like it's been that long to you?
Yeah. I say yeah, but I think some of the stuff we've done over the last 8 years, it kind of goes quick.
Sure.
Especially when you got meets every weekend, it kind of goes pretty quick. But yeah, no, we've had a great run, and we're going to try to keep it going.
Yeah, I know when we first started, thanks to COVID here in the last couple of years, we haven't run cross country in the fall, but typically, we run, or y'all run, I don't run anything, year round. We start in August running cross country, and then we follow that into the winter months with the indoor, and then right back to outdoor. So it probably does go quick when it's year round running.
Yeah, absolutely. It feels like once August hits, it's grind time all the way till about Christmas when everybody goes home. And then we get right back started when they get back in January. When we have our first meet that first weekend, and it's off to the races all the way till basically Memorial Day.
That's right. Well, speaking of that first weekend after the Christmas break, that first weekend was last weekend for y'all as y'all headed up to Birmingham, ran in the UAB Vulcan Invitational. Tell me a little bit about how we did last weekend.
I thought we did really well. We walked away with, I think, 3 indoor national qualifiers. We had Mo qualified in the 1,000, Amos Beadle qualified in the 600, and then Augustus Carway in the high jump. Outside that, I thought we did really well. I tell our team every year, that meet, let's go have fun. Knock the rust off. You have to have expectations of these are juniors and seniors you're running against with the likes of Alabama, Miami, Louisville, Mississippi State, Ole Miss. Just go have fun. Don't worry about the lane next to you. Focus on your execution, and everything will go well. We're young. That showed. We had some hiccups, but all in all, I was very pleased. Yeah.
So last weekend, were we the only junior college, community college at the meet?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. And I believe this weekend Hines will be there, but for the most part, every weekend it's just us.
Well, that brings me up to one of my questions. You know, I don't know how many people listening know this, but we're one of 3 schools in the state of Mississippi, community colleges with track and field. And how does that help you or hurt you in recruiting? Does it matter at all? Do you see anything out there when you're talking to these kids, knowing that we're one of 3?
It depends on the individual. I tell people a lot of track athletes you get in Mississippi at the high school level also play football.
Sure.
So you got to compete with basically every junior college but us has football.
Right.
And then you've got 3 that only have track. So it's a balancing act with each person we recruit in state and what they're looking for. But at the same time, it's nice that we don't have a conference meet. We don't have a region meet. We had talked about it years ago, and we said with 3 teams, we're really the only complete team with distance throws, jumpers, sprints, hurdles. We said, it's not really, it'd be great to win it every year, but at the same time, we could go somewhere else and have a more competitive meet for our roster as a whole.
Yeah, before we brought track back in 2008, it seemed to me, and I don't know if this is true, this may have been perception on my part completely, that Coahoma and Hines, the other 2 schools that have track, it almost felt like they had track as a conditioning program for their football team. Like, I don't know how many actual track athletes they recruited and brought in. It seemed like the majority of their team was made up of football players, and once football season was over, similar to high school, they went and ran track to try to get faster and to stay in shape for football. Did you feel like that was the case when you started here?
Yes and no. You obviously have some programs that are like that. I think when you look at Hines, I think in the grand scheme of things, I think over the years they've had a combination of both. Obviously, Terrell Kimmons, who was an Olympian, ran at Hines. And you've had a few people over there, whether it was Katavius Walters, who went to Alabama, or Corian Mosby that went to LSU, that were just strictly track people. But you also you get that crossover at both places, and I think that can be a benefit because there's a lot of Division I schools that do the same thing. I know Texas A&M's got one this year. LSU normally has 1 or 2. So it's becoming more of a commonality than people realize.
Well, I felt like maybe that was a recruiting advantage for us, to get just the strictly track athletes and say, you don't have to. I don't say have to play football, but you come here to get better at track and to go on. And speaking of getting better and going on, we've had several big-time runners. I know this weekend you got to watch Leander and Winston run back-to-back for the University of Alabama. How was that?
It was great. I tell everybody that's probably the biggest joy I get is watching our former kids run at a 4-year institution, whether it's at Alabama or LSU or wherever, Auburn, Ole Miss, Mississippi State, or wherever they go. It's always a lot of fun. I actually got a great joy out of watching Grover start the relay for Alabama because he never did it for us.
Really?
And I kept telling him, I need you to start this. And he's like, nah, coach, I can't do it. And after the race, he was like, all right, I can do it. I was like, well, I've been telling you that for 2 years.
That's right. We've had a lot of success. We talked, before we started here this morning, we've had 7 individual or relay national champions in the past 8 years, and countless, athletes that have gone on to Division I track programs in the SEC, and really outstanding, people to leave here and go run. So the success is got to be unmatched, especially in the state of Mississippi. We had one guy set a national record this past weekend up in Alabama.
I actually didn't realize it was a record till we got on the bus coming back. Keyshawn Black, who's signed to the University of Georgia for next year, he ran, I think, 33:67 for 300 meters. It's an odd event. I like for him to run it normally because it's a really good, gives a good gauge of where he is fitness wise. I think he finished 4th behind 2 Olympians and then a runner from Alabama. So he had a great weekend. We're looking forward to what he can do this year.
That's not his primary event, is it?
No.
What's he best at?
100 meters. Last year he ran 10:27, win legal. Was invited to go run at the Olympic trials. And then this weekend he'll open up at 60 meters, which is going to be his main event indoors. He's been telling me all week school records are going to get broken, and it would not shock me.
Right. Well, that's great. Tell me, let's talk a little bit about the women's team. I know it's smaller and it's a little bit harder to recruit the women, for track, because similar to playing football, I think a lot of them play basketball and softball and things like that. So talk a little bit about the women. I think they had a pretty good weekend as well.
Yeah, they had a really good weekend. We had Ariana Simmons in the 60 hurdles, ran really well. Had some technical issues, but ran really well. I thought we were pretty. We didn't execute quite as well in the 60 and in the 200 as I would like, but nobody had run on a bank track before, so big learning experience for us.
Sure.
And we look to see if we can get a little bit better this weekend. And then we sat our top women's 400 runner who should have no problem qualifying for the national meet. And so this weekend we're going to try to see if everybody can go for the most part. And I expect we'll probably get 2, maybe 3 national qualifying marks out of the women this weekend.
Outstanding. So how many total indoor meets will we run before we get to the national tournament?
7, I believe.
7? Okay.
7, yeah.
And so for those of us who are not as familiar with track, the purpose of these meets leading up to the national tournament is to meet a certain time in your event,
right,
which then qualifies you to go to the national meet, correct?
Mm-hmm. Correct.
And so how is that time set each year? Because it's not the same each year, correct?
Right. Yeah, it changes every year. I'm actually on the standards committee.
Okay.
And I'll be honest with you, I don't know what the standards are. I tell our team every year, if we take care of business, it takes care of itself. But yeah, every event has a qualifying mark. It helps make it where the national meet is highly competitive. It changes also outdoors. So, it's a lot of numbers. It's actually based off of a formula we use. I won't get into that, but it does. It changes every year based on what happens at the indoor and outdoor national meets.
Okay. And so, again, just kind of maybe helping educate some of our listeners who aren't as familiar with track, because it's not as popular or as well known in Mississippi as it is other places. So in track, we've got sprints, we've got middle distance, and long distance, right?
Right.
So kind of break those 3 down for me and tell me, and I know you coach sprints and middle distance.
No, I coach all of our sprinters, hurdlers, and jumpers.
Okay, and then our assistant coach, Damian Morgan, does middle distance and long distance.
Mm-hmm.
So kind of break those down for me and help educate the audiences, if you will, about the differences and all that.
Yeah, obviously your sprinters, hurdlers, and jumpers, they can all, for the most part, with the exception of probably my jumpers, they can all run 400 meters and down, which is 1 lap around a track. Everything that's multiple laps on a track, that's what your distance runners are doing. Mid distance is pretty much the 800. Indoors, we include the 600 and the 1,000. But And then once you get to the mile and 3K and the 5K, that's 10K. That's your distance running. And then in the jumps, you've got long jump, triple jump, pole vault, high jump.
So in indoor, we're running the 3K, is that what you said, or the 5K?
Yeah.
That's a long time out there running a circle, I feel like.
Yeah. It can get kind of boring. I watched the women's 3K the other day, and I sat there and I said, if I crossed the line after one lap and I saw that I still had 14 laps to go, I'd probably walk off the track.
Yeah, it boggles my mind how these kids come out of high school and think, I just want to go out there and run in a circle for 30 minutes. That sounds like fun to me. You know, I'm trying to do this,
Right.
for 4 years in college. So
Exactly.
kudos to them, because I'm like you. I feel like after a lap, I think I'm done.
I'm good.
I don't have the attention span to try to run 14 times in a circle like that. It's not NASCAR.
That's how Mo was Saturday running the 1,000. He said, "Man, I got to keep going.
Yeah.
1,000 meters. I got to keep going." He said, "I just stopped looking at the numbers on the lap counter."
God, that would be tough. Well, tell me a little bit about you, about how you got here. Like I said, we had track back in the 90s, and I won the school's first ever national championship, I think, in 95 or 96. Mm-hmm. And then the program took a break for about 22 years, and then I brought you back in 2013 to start recruiting and kind of resurrect or bring back track in 2014. So tell me where you were, pre-2013 and how you got to this point.
Pre-2013, I had a stint at the University of Memphis, and then before I came here, and then before Memphis, I was at Iowa Central Community College in Fort Dodge, Iowa. I coached all the 400 meters, all 400-meter athletes, and then I also coached. I assisted with our cross-country team that won men's and women's cross-country nationals, and then they won the men's and women's half marathon that year. Prior to that, I was an assistant at Ole Miss for 3.5 years.
Okay.
So ended up here. The original head coach, Joseph Walker, I actually worked for his dad. His dad was my mentor. Our athletic director, Sandra Atkinson, was actually his athletic trainer. And Sander asked Joseph if he knew anybody, and he said, well, my dad had a guy that worked for him that might be interested. And we get to, I think, the NCAA East Regional that year, and Joseph kind of took me out to dinner in Jacksonville, Florida, and pitched a job to me, said, hey, this is where I started, and came down here once we got back from NCAA championships in Eugene, Oregon. I think I came down here literally 48 hours after I got back and interviewed, and been here ever since.
Well, so somebody had to sell you on Meridian, right?
Yeah.
Because I'm sure, traveling all over the world, and even at Ole Miss, I'm sure you knew about Meridian,
Yeah.
whether you knew about track or not. So tell me a little bit about what sold you on Meridian and Meridian Community College, and then how you turned that over and relay that into recruiting to sell these other kids to come to Meridian.
Well, the biggest thing that I told myself was we have to have a vision of what we want this to be. I actually came in to the interview. I knew I was going to be meeting with the athletic director, obviously. I knew I was going to be meeting with Dr. Elliott, who was the president at the time, as well as the interview committee. And I was 25 at the time.
Sure.
I wanted to make it very point and clear that I had a vision and a plan to do this. And I showed up with a 30-page basically book that I had written of how we were going to do everything, whether it was recruiting, scheduling, pretty much anything you could think of was in that book, and we stuck to it. It had a 5-year plan, and obviously going on to now, we've adjusted that 5-year plan.
Right.
After 5 years, we reevaluated what we wanted to do. And that's what I sold to them. And then I told myself, we've got to sell this vision to recruits.
Sure.
And when we brought recruits in, that's what I sold to them. This is what's going to happen. I tell my former athletes all the time that first recruiting class, I owe them all the credit. That first recruiting class included 2 guys that ran top 30 times in the world as freshmen. They really set the precedent for what the program is today.
Sure.
And But selling that vision to the administration, I think, was key. And when I came down here, I saw that they had everything you needed to be successful. You got a track. As long as you got a track, we can make this work.
Right. Well, and since we got the track, then you were able to trick administration, I would say, into building you probably the nicest building on campus. So that can't help at all with recruiting. You've got state-of-the-art locker room, 50 lockers for men, 50 for women, 3 offices, a conference room, a tradition room. Tell me about, does that, when we get athletes on campus, do they, because nobody else in the state for sure in junior college, and I don't know what kind of
I think Mississippi State's the only one that comes close.
I was just going to say, I don't know that Division I has buildings and locker rooms as nice as what we've got.
Yeah, I think Mississippi State's the only one, and it's a big tool in recruiting. When we get kids on campus, we like to make it the last stop on the campus tour.
Sure.
And they come in and they're just mesmerized. You got the mannequins with what our uniforms are, the school record board, where people have gone on from here. And it really is. It's a big tool that we use to sell our program. And, I can't thank the administration enough for building it and having the vision for it. And I never in my wildest dreams 8-9 years ago thought that we would have something like that. I was just happy we had a track.
That's right. I think you may be the most envied coach on campus with that facility. Well, Coach, I want to thank you for coming out.
Absolutely.
And good luck this weekend as y'all head back to Birmingham for the Sanford Invitational. We'll take a quick break. You're listening to Super Talk Meridian 103.3 FM, A View from the Top.
Meridian Community College. For more than 75 years, we've helped students soar. Establishing the first tuition guarantee program in Mississippi, we put our students first, while creating pathways into the workforce and offering a seamless transition to a 4-year degree. Now is the time to find your purpose and register today, because those who move forward never get left behind. MCC, find your wings.
Welcome back to A View from the Top, brought to you by the Rush Sports Medicine Team. I'm your host, Christopher Haralson. Every Wednesday morning here at 9 a.m. on Super Talk Meridian 103.3 FM, we take a look around the world at Meridian Community College. Today I was lucky enough to be joined by head MCC track coach Chip Gayden as we discussed his 8 years or 9 years here at Meridian and how well the track team has done. And wish them the best of luck this weekend as they head back to Birmingham, Alabama for the Sanford Invitational. I want to remind everyone to come out to the Graham Gymnasium tomorrow night as the MCC Eagles host the Hines Bulldogs at 6 o'clock. Basketball team's off to a great start. They're 11-4 this season. Super exciting team to watch. Love to have you come out to the Graham Gymnasium and watch them in person. If for whatever reason you can't make it out, I'd still encourage you to tune in to mcceagles.live and watch our live stream for all the action. I promise you won't be disappointed in the stream or the team. They've been a lot of fun to watch this year. The next Monday, they'll get back on the road and they'll head up to Fulton, Mississippi as they'll take on the Indians of Itawamba. That'll be a 6 o'clock tip as well. And then in reverse of that, the Lady Eagles will head over to Utica tomorrow night to play the Lady Bulldogs of Hines. The ladies have hit a bit of a rough patch, dropping the last 2 games, but I think they look to get back on the winning path tomorrow night at Hines. And then next Monday, they'll host the Lady Indians of Itawamba in the Graham Gymnasium, and encourage you to come out and watch the ladies. And if you can't make it to that, you can watch that one at mcceagles.live as well. There's plenty of opportunities to come out and watch MCC basketball. Someone's at home every Monday and Thursday night for the rest of the season. To keep up with all things MCC athletics, be sure to like us on Facebook at MCC Eagles Athletics. You can follow us on Twitter at MCC Eagles Sports. For every episode of A View from the Top, Eagle highlights, and much more, subscribe to us on YouTube. Just search Meridian Community College. And once again, I want to thank head coach Chip Gayden for joining me today. And I want to thank you for listening to this week's episode of A View from the Top, brought to you by the Rush Sports Medicine Team. Join me next Wednesday morning here at 9 o'clock on Super Talk Meridian 103.3 FM as we visit with head tennis coach TJ Carter and talk about his upcoming season, his alumni event, and where that program is going. Once again, we'll see you next week, Wednesday at 9 a.m. here on Super Talk Meridian 103.3 FM.